This is equation practice for calculating inflation, CPI, and the GDP deflator. So first let's calculate our inflation rate. So another way to phrase our inflation rate is this just percent change. So this is new minus old over old times 100. That's all the inflation rate equation is just percent change. So if we're going to calculate the inflation rate from year 1 to year 2, so it's new minus old over old times 100, and what does that give us? It gives us 12.9%. So go ahead and calculate 2 and 3, and then you can restart the video. So number 2, from year 2 to year 3, so it's 370 minus 305 over 305 times 100, which will give us 21.3%. And then year 1 to year 3 is 370 minus 270 over 270 times 100 will give us 37%. So the 12.9%, 21.3%, and 37%, that's the inflation rate. So the inflation rate from year 1 to year 2 was 12.9%. The inflation rate from year 1 to year 3 was 37%. Now let's look at calculating the price index, or the CPI, for a year. So that is our market basket over the given year over the market basket of the base year. So how did I determine my market basket? Well, right here. So 2 times 1.75 equals 350. 2 times 12 equals 24. 10 times 1.25 equals 1250. And we add these numbers together, and our market basket for year 1 is 40. So we'll do the same thing for year 2. So we have 2 pounds of cheese times 150 equals 3. And then 2 pairs of pants for $15 equals 31. And then 10 gallons of gas times 1.6 equals 16. We add these 3 numbers together. Here's our market basket for year 2 is 50. Then we did the same thing for year 3, and that's our market basket for year 3 is 70. So now we're going to use these market baskets to determine our consumer price index number. So that's just the market basket of the given year over the market basket of the base year. So our given year is year 1, and then year 2 is the base year. So this is going to be 40 over 50 times 100, which will equal 80. So the CPI for year 1 is 80. And then year 2 is going to be 50 over 50 times 100 equals 100. So we know year 2 has to be 100 because that's the base year. The base year will always be 100. And then year 3 is 70 over 50 times 100 equals 140. So the CPI for year 3 is 140. Now let's use our CPIs that we calculated on the previous slide to figure out the inflation rate. So we're still using our percent change equation. So still new minus old over old times 100. So go ahead and calculate the inflation rates. All right, so let's check your answers. So year 1 to year 2. So it's going to be 100 minus 80 over 80 times 100 equals 25%. Then year 2 to year 3 is 140 minus 100 over 100 times 100 equals 40%. And then year 1 to year 3 will be 140 minus 80 over 80 times 100 equals 75%. So the inflation rate from year 1 to year 2 is 25%, year 2 to year 3 is 40%, and then year 1 to year 3 is 75%. Now, sometimes we're not provided with price levels, the CPI or another price index, but we still need to deflate nominal GDP to give us real GDP. So we use our GDP deflator equation. So our GDP deflator equation is nominal GDP over real GDP times 100. That's our GDP deflator equation. So if we look at number 1, we need to calculate the GDP deflator. So our nominal GDP is 100 billion over the real GDP of 80 billion times 100 equals our GDP deflator. And now it's algebra. So now we just need to figure out what x is. So x will equal 125. If we do algebra, we'll see that our GDP deflator is 125. So go ahead and calculate 2 and 3, and then you can restart and check your answer. So let's check your answers for 2 and 3. Real GDP is 100 billion. GDP deflator is 200. Calculate nominal. So we are looking for the nominal GDP, but we've been provided the real GDP times 100 equals our GDP deflator of 200. So you use algebra and you will determine that the nominal GDP is 200 billion. And then number 3, we are provided nominal GDP and the GDP deflator, and we need to find real GDP. So nominal GDP is 100 billion. We need to find the real GDP. And our GDP deflator is provided as 125. And we need to figure out the real GDP. We use our algebra skills. Real GDP equals 80 billion.